Welcome to the module on children of migrant laborers. Learning outcomes. This module titled Children of Migrant Laborers aims to provide the learner with basic understanding of the challenges faced by the children of migrant laborers in India. It would provide insights into intervention strategies for children of migrant laborers. Additionally, it gives the learner some insights into the rights of the children of migrant laborers. This in turn would help the learner to gain insights to the work in the context of the children of migrant laborers. Children of the migrant laborers. Every year, thousands of families in rural India are forced by poverty to migrate along with their families in search of livelihood. The lack of sustainable livelihood and natural calamities like droughts and floods sometimes force the entire family to move out of their villages. Most of them end up as casual laborers within the unorganized sector and are vulnerable to exploitation. They are employed as farm hands in agricultural sector, brick kilns, quarries, construction sites and fish processing industries, to name a few. In the urban informal sector, the migrants also work as casual laborers, head loaders, hawkers and rickshaw pullers. They work in manufacturing units, transport and service sectors. Their employees are interested only in their labor and neglect their welfare. Besides, the very nature of their work exposes them to unsafe working conditions, diseases and very limited access to health services. Migrant workers, mostly laborers, are now found in every nook and corner of the country due to increased better connectivity and increased demand for labor. Migrants are often paid much below the minimum wages prescribed by the law and also have to do excessive work. Even women and children are forced to work for their sustenance. According to the author Smitha in 2008, children become full-fledged laborers by the age of 11 or 12 years. They are part of the integral labor processes and suit certain types of work which require nimble fingers and are preferred in industries like carpet making. Most of the children of migrants are employed in sectors such as construction, brick manufacturing, agarbatti making, salt making, sugarcane harvesting, stone quarrying, fishing and on plantations. Children are the most vulnerable within the families of the migrant laborers. There are many children who are left behind when their parents migrate, and there are those who accompany them in their quest for work. When the young children in their formative years migrate with their parents, they lose out on opportunities for physical, psychological and intellectual development, which affects their cognition and emotional development. The migrants' children are forced to either discontinue their school education totally or receive only substandard education and thus suffer from learning deficits. Children of the migrant population are more vulnerable to abuse and exploitation, trafficking and involvement in smuggling, discrimination, exclusion from basic social services, and are exposed to the worst forms of child labor. This module explores in detail the challenges faced by the children of migrant laborers in India and proposes certain interventions that could correct the existing gaps in service availability and access to them among these children. Definition. The United Nations Convention on Rights of the Child, UNCRC 1989, defines a child as every human being below the age of 18 years unless under the law applicable to the child majority is attained earlier, according to the author Bajpai 2006. The Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act 2000 of India defines juvenile or child as a person who has not completed the 18th year of age, according to Bajpai 2006. UNICEF in the year 2009 defined internal migration as the movement within the borders of a country, usually measured across regional, district or municipality boundaries, resulting in a change of a usual place of residence. International migration is the movement across international borders, resulting in a change of country of usual residence. In India, migration is primarily of two types. Long-term migration, which results in the relocation of an individual or the entire household. Short-term or seasonal migration, which involves back and forth movement between a source and a destination. Socioeconomically disadvantaged groups usually belong to this category. Statistics. National Commission for the Protection of Child Rights (NCPCR) estimates that 9 million children under the age of 14 years are in work sites in India. According to the estimate of UNICEF in the year 2012, there are 15 million child migrants in India. As per the 2001 census of India, the country had 309 million migrants, or 30% of the population of the country was migrants. The World Bank estimates that 326 million or 28.5% of the population are migrants, as cited by UNICEF in the year 2012. According to the author Smita, in the year 2008, she points out that Maharashtra, being the major producer, that is 70% of sugar is produced in Maharashtra in India. As per a study in 2003, 650,000 laborers migrate from central to western Maharashtra, which is the sugar belt, for sugarcane cutting every year. This includes 2 lakh children in the age group of 6 to 14 years. She further informs that the children accompanying their parents in the 0 to 14 years age group may constitute about 1/3 of the total seasonal migrants. Children of migrant laborers and child rights. The United Nations Child Rights Convention draws attention to 4 sets of rights for every child, as mentioned in the National Initiative for Child Protection (NICP) in the year 2000. The right to survival. This right includes the right to life, the attainable standard of health, nutrition, and an adequate standard of living. The right to protection. This includes freedom from all sorts of exploitation, abuse, and inhuman or degrading treatment. The right to development. This right includes the right to be educated, to receive support or development and care during early childhood, and to social security. The right to participation. This right accords the child access to information and the freedom of thought and expression, conscience and religion. The convention also points out in Article 27 that the state parties should recognize the right of every child to a standard of living adequate for the child's physical, mental, spiritual, moral and social development. It further states in Article 19 that the state should protect the child from all forms of physical or mental violence, injury or abuse, neglect or negligent treatment, maltreatment or exploitation, including sexual abuse. The Constitution of India, Article 14, provides equality before the law, that is, equal treatment and protection under the law, according to the Order Jagwala 2002. All children in similar circumstances are required to be treated in a similar manner, and if not so treated, Such treatment can be challenged on the ground of discrimination and it being arbitrary. Article 15 Clause 3 permits the state to make special provisions for women and children. Article 21 guarantees the right to life to all persons. The Supreme Court has interpreted right to life to include right to food, clothing, adequate shelter and other basic necessities of life. Article 24 prohibits the employment of a child below 14 years in any factory or any other hazardous employment. Article 39E of the Directive Principles of State Policy states that the state shall direct its policy towards securing the health and strength of workers, men and women, and the tender age of children are not abused, and that citizens are not forced by economic necessity to enter vocations unsuited to their age and strength. And Article 39F states that children are given opportunities and facilities to develop in a healthy manner and in conditions of freedom and dignity, and that childhood and youth are protected against exploitation and against moral and material abandonment. Article 41 provides for the government to take effective steps for securing the right to education. Article 45 points out that the state is to take measures to ensure free and compulsory education for all children till they attain 14 years of age. Article 47 states that the improvement of public health and raising the level of nutrition is a primary duty of the state. The Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009 has a number of provisions pertaining to the children of migrant laborers. Section 3 says that every child of age 6 to 14 years has the right to free and compulsory education. Section 5 gives children the right to seek transfer to any school, and the schools have to issue a transfer certificate with immediate effect. Section 9 of the Act states specifically that it is the duty of the local authority to ensure admission of children of the migrant families. Section 14 and 15 state that no child can be denied admission due to the lack of proof of age or in case of child seeking late admission. Section 29 states that the language of instruction should be in the mother tongue of the child and the evaluation procedures should be flexible. Profile of migrant workers and their families. The NCPCR states that migrant populations overwhelmingly belong to the scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and other backward castes. Most of the migrant laborers are from poor economic strata who are landless or possess very little land. They have limited assets and resources and lack education and skills. Studies have shown that most of the migrant laborers in stone quarries in Rajasthan and Karnataka, salt pans in Gujarat, brick kilns in Andhra Pradesh, rice mills in Tamil Nadu and sugarcane fields in Maharashtra are from the most marginalized sections of the society, quoted by Smita in 2008. Very often they are under debt and are forced to work with their families for certain contractors who provide loans during the monsoons. Patterns of migration. Long duration migration is where the migrant laborers live at the work site away from their homes for 8 to 9 months. These are mostly industrial and agro-industrial sites such as brick making, tile making, construction, stone quarrying, fishing, salt pans, rice mills, sugarcane fields and charcoal making. Long-term migration may take place between October to November months and April to June months. Many of the migrant laborers shift work sites and some even migrate round the year, having delinked from their villages. Often the migrants migrate as a family and live in slum-like settlements at the work sites, placing themselves in insecure situations. Short duration migration is where migrant laborers move from site to site several times a year for the duration of 1 to 2 months, mainly for agricultural work such as sowing, transplantation and harvest. Nature of work sites. Usually, the work sites are situated at a distance from normal human habitation. They lack basic facilities such as roads, water, markets, health and recreational facilities and schools. The migrants have to work for long hours, usually 14 to 16 hours. The laborers are expected to work in any situation, even if they are sick or injured. Women are in even more difficult position as they have to work even if pregnant or having just given birth to a child. Their living conditions are perilous and living spaces small and unhygienic. They face health hazards at the work site such as infections, contamination and toxin related diseases, respiratory problems, gynecological problems, injuries, gradual loss of hearing, malnutrition and unwanted pregnancies and abortions. They have no access to standard medical facilities. Neither are they paid when they are sick, nor can they claim any compensation or insurance as quoted by Smita in 2008. Education of children of migrant laborers. Children invariably drop out of school when they migrate with their families. At the work sites, children invariably join the workforce. If they do not work, they have to look after the younger siblings and carry out the household chores. This way, they are completely out of school and remain illiterate and are sucked into the cycle of migration. According to Smita 2008, she points out that even when children have access to school in migration areas, the status of the government schools is dismal. Poor education facilities push these children firmly into the unorganized labor market. Some popular sites of migrant laborers. According to the author Smita in 2008, she gives information on sugarcane cutting sites in Maharashtra, brick kilns in Andhra Pradesh, and salt pans in Gujarat. The state of Maharashtra produces 70% of the total output of sugar in India and has 172 cooperative sugar factories. It is estimated that about 650,000 laborers migrate to sugarcane sites in western Maharashtra, and of these about 2 lakh are children belonging to the age group of 6 to 14 years. The cane cutters live with their families in the vicinity of the sugarcane fields. Each family lives in a small hut made up of bamboo mat and bamboo poles. The huts are crammed together with humans and livestock living in close proximity. They work for long hours. Adults cut the cane, remove its top and throw it on the ground. Children then pile the canes and collect and bundle the sugarcane tops. About 2 million people from the tribal districts of Orissa migrate to Andhra Pradesh to work in brick kilns. There are around 300 brick kilns around Hyderabad alone, where 1 lakh to 1,50,000 people migrate, and 35% of these are children. A typical brick kiln would have about 100 to 200 laborers, including men, women and children. The process of brick making involves mixing clay, making mud balls, moulding them into bricks, carrying wet bricks to the field for drying, flipping them as they dry, carrying dried bricks on headloads to the kiln for firing, and carrying fired bricks on headloads back to the trucks for transporting to the market. Children carry 10 to 12 bricks as a single head load. Children in the age of 9 to 11 years are involved in the complete process of brick making. The brick kiln units prefer laborers with children for cheap labor. Families without children may be denied work. Gujarat has 1600 salt producing units in 13 districts, and Kutch is the major salt producer district, receiving about 2 lakhs to 2,25,000 migrants every year. A marine salt pan is usually spread over 10-acre area and serviced by one family of 2 adults and 2 to 4 children. The workers have to face strong sea winds, the glare of the sun reflecting off the salt, strong midday heat and cold nights. Children who help their parents in all aspects of this operation are exposed to these extreme conditions. Causes of migration. In most parts of the country, the agricultural sector is dependent upon rain-fed agriculture. The lack of livelihood options after the failed monsoon crops, affected by indebtedness and food insecurity, families move out in search of work. UNICEF in the year 2009, in its publication, points out push factors and pull factors that motivate migration. Push factors are circumstances at the place of origin that motivate individuals to migrate, like poor wages, poverty, lack of livelihood options and marginalization, caste conflicts and communal tensions. And the pull factors are those conditions at the place of destination that attract a person and encourage him or her to migrate. These could include assured means of livelihood, better wages, improved living conditions, etc. It has been widely established that the economic factors are the predominant cause for migration. Poverty and marginalization, unemployment, low wages and insecure livelihood conditions, lack of education and health services push people to migrate to those places where they find better wages and work conditions, more work opportunities, better access to education, health services and better livelihood options. UNICEF and Economic Research Foundation in the year 2011, they speak of other factors such as political factors like insecurity and violence, weak governance, widespread corruption and human rights abuses that force people to go in search of security and political freedom. Social and cultural factors like social exclusion, discrimination, ethnic or caste tensions also make people seek freedom through migration. Environmental factors such as scarce natural resources, environmental degradation, forced displacement due to developmental projects such as dams, power plants, highways, etc., natural disasters and climate changes push people to migrate to areas where they find improved climatic conditions and improved agricultural prospects. Impacts of migration. Some of the significant impacts of migration are lack of access to legal rights, public services and social protection programs that are given to the regular residents by local self-government, and they also lack opportunities for political representation. Point 2, they have limited access to state provided services like health and education. Insecure and hazardous conditions at workplace and comparatively low wages. Fourth point, discrimination based on ethnicity, caste, religion, class and gender. And lastly, denial of basic entitlements such as access to subsidized food, housing, drinking water, sanitation, public health facilities and education. Impacts of migration on children who are left behind at home. Lack of parental care. When children do not accompany their parents, they are left with their relatives or friends. Children, in the absence of their parents, become subjects of neglect and abuse. They are deprived of parental care, emotional support, guidance, and protection. Relatives and friends may be unable to take up the responsibilities of the children, and the children may feel unwanted and discriminated. Family responsibility. In the absence of parents, older children are forced to take care of younger siblings and get involved in household chores. Such responsibilities on young shoulders often hampers their education and opportunities for overall development. Social stigmatization. The long duration of absence of parents can be a social stigma to the children of migrant laborers. The children practically become orphans when parents migrate for longer periods of time, which may lead to their low self-confidence, low self-esteem, anxiety, and stress. They may be negatively viewed and judged by the society. Vulnerability to negative influences. The lack of parental care, guidance, and supervision may lead the children to drop out of the school and lead them to substance abuse, sexual deviance, and antisocial activities. Impacts of migration on children who accompany their families. Poor health and lack of access to health services. The children of migrant laborers are often excluded from the state-sponsored health and nutrition programs. The absence of trained attendants during childbirth. Inability of the lactating mothers to breastfeed the child as required due to work conditions, and lack of complementary feeding make the children anemic and weak. These children are also deprived of immunization, growth monitoring, and regular health checkups. Children of migrants are prone to malnutrition that affects their normal growth and can result in frequent illnesses and physical and cognitive deficiencies. Poor working and living conditions, lack of access to safe drinking water and sanitation facilities can lead to diseases such as malaria, waterborne and respiratory diseases, and diarrhea. Limitations in access to education. Migration delays school entry, denies or interrupts schooling, increases the number of children dropping out, and leads to child labor, as quoted by UNICEF in 2008. The work sites such as salt pans, sea coasts, brick kilns, plantations, charcoal sites, sugarcane sites, etc. are usually found in isolated locations and have no access to schools. Child labor. Children accompanying the parents on migration end up working in the work sites. They work for long hours as payment of wages is low on a piece rate basis. Often their work input is not counted separately and added to the family income. Contact with peers. Being on the move constantly deprives the children of friendships, familiarity, and peer support, thus lowering their self-confidence and sense of security. Vulnerability to abuse and exploitation. Migration may expose the children to substance abuse and sexual exploitation and sexual deviance. Other difficulties. Migrant families are always on the move and they suffer from lack of proof of residence. Hence, they find it difficult to obtain birth certificates, subsidies, and such other facilities. Existing interventions and services. The government as well as voluntary organizations have initiated various programs for mitigating the impact of migration. Efforts are made to shift children back into schools, through the promotion of community-based organizations such as self-help groups and livelihood programs. National child labor projects were initiated in the year 1988 in order to rehabilitate the children working in hazardous trades and industries. The universalization of elementary education through the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan program by the Government of India also aims at ensuring education to children of migrants. Some NGOs like Vedchi Pradesh Seva Samiti VPSS and Sankalp in Gujarat initiated educational programs for the children of migrants in sugarcane fields by setting up nurseries, learning centers and seasonal hostels. In Maharashtra, alternate schools called Sahakar Salas were set up in sugarcane cutting sites and Bhonga Shalas near bricklins. National Child Labour Program, the NCPCR 2007, in the 11th 5-year plan has suggested setting up transitional educational centers TEC where children could be provided with residential facilities when parents move out for work. The NCPCR has also suggested temporary TECs where people migrate for work such as bricklins, salt pans, sugarcane areas, etc. And the responsibility for these TECs lies with the Departments of Labour, Education, Panchayati Raj and Tribal Development. Role of social workers. Social workers have a major role in enabling the children of migrants to have access to existing services as well as to engage in advocacy with the government for comprehensive services for their welfare. Some of the major contributions that the social workers can make are: establish facilities to identify and to establish contact with the children of migrant laborers, motivate migrant parents to send their children to schools, playing the vigilante role of exposing cases of child migrant workers, organize bridge education facilities, strengthen the school education committees, assist local community-based organizations for child rights protection, network with various departments such as education, police, labor and social welfare, advocate with the local and state level authorities for implementation of existing policies for the benefit of the children of migrants, advocate with the state and union governments for child-centric policies that protect the rights of children and enhance access to non-discriminatory services. Conclusion: millions of children accompany their parents during migration and are forced to drop out of school, leading to limited opportunities for their development. The Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act of 2009 provides that every child should be educated. A great number of children continue to work at the migration sites even though child labor is prohibited under the Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act of 1986. The rights of these children have to be protected. The children should be allowed to live their childhood in a healthy atmosphere. To achieve this, legal provisions need to be implemented with sincerity and efficiency. The local community should be mobilized to advocate and protect the rights of the children. The education, labor, tribal and Panchayati Raj departments and voluntary organizations need to work hand in hand to ensure the implementation of policies and enhance access to these services. A post-globalized India has seen unprecedented migration from the rural areas to the urban in search of better livelihood opportunities. The increased phenomenon of migration in the country is the outcome of the liberalized economy as well as the regular failure of rain-dependent crops. The migration, whether seasonal or permanent, negatively impacts the family as a whole and children in particular. As the adults migrate for livelihood, children either migrate along with them or they are left behind with their relatives and neighbors. Migration deprives children of their basic rights as enshrined in the international conventions and in our constitution. They lack parental care and love, are often forced to drop out from school, forced into child labor, and lack access to adequate health and nutritional services. It takes away the joys of their childhood and leaves them with no proper space for socialization and development. Government and the civil society organizations have made efforts to bridge the gap in services for these children, but more is to be done. The issues and challenges faced by the children of migrant workers provides a platform for social workers to assess and analyze the causes and context of deprivation and to advocate and promote services and opportunities for the holistic growth and development of children of migrant workers in India. Thank you for being a part of this module on children of migrant laborers.